Good morning, everyone. Again, I want to give thanks that how you celebrate with me last Sunday. I'm still a little bit overwhelmed. You know what? To be honest, I haven't really processed everything. Um, Sounds funny, but it's been a little bit of blur what happened on Sunday because all this planning, all this emotions of my my mentor coming out sort of out of retirement to give that message, and I'm still sort of processing like everything that he has told me. You know, even after he called me up and we have a chat, and it's been overwhelming, and also the video that Hansel prepared and all the youth and the baking, and like everyone got cookie, right? Did everyone get a cookie? Did anyone leave empty-handed? Hopefully you didn't. Okay, so it was really good cookie. Some of the guests who text me saying that the cookie was really good. Like, is there a baker on staff at Pacific Grace? And I said, no, it's just love, and someone did ask for the recipe, and I said. So I asked the baker. I think you all know who the baker is, okay? His identity was on the video, anyways. He was also a reporter, but the recipe was from your heart, make with love. So, I mean, that's a simple recipe, and I think we all can follow that recipe. Yeah. So, this morning we enter a new chapter in our study of the Sermon on the Mount. And, since I started this series on Sermon on the Mount, I've been sort of meditating, like all through seminary. Like we do a course on Sermon on the Mount, and I'm assuming all of you have heard many sermons on Sermon on the Mount, probably in Bible studies in your quiet time. But this Sermon on the Mount has really challenged me. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be challenged by other parts of the Bible, but this Sermon on the Mount has really challenged me as I've meditated and prepared for this message. Because I've been asking myself, and hopefully you've been asking yourself as we've been journeying through this series on Sermon on the Mount, is our personal ethics, our how we conduct ourselves, how we treat one another, how we see ourselves. What do we do? Like, is our personal ethics in line with kingdom ethics? The world we live in, there's so many temptations, there's so many things, and that says, why should I even bother be a Christian? Like, why don't I just go with the flow? I'll offend less people, right? I offend the church, but what about my friends? Am I gonna lose friends? And it's been a challenge, and I've been sort of meditating, each time, not just preparing the message, but listening to myself prepare the message. Like, what parts of the message that you need to really hold on to? And just give a quick snapshot of where we've been is, chapter 5, we're going to chapter 6 this morning. Chapter 5 had 3 major sections. The first section was on Beatitudes, which dealt with our Christian character. And then we journeyed into the part about the salt and the light, and it dealt with our influence. Are we the salt and the light of the earth? How do we influence people? But but again, I want to stress influence out of love, not influence in the sense of treating people as our personal project. Saying, yeah, I brought someone to the church, but really build into their lives. Talk about things that they need to change, but change for the good, not change like, oh, I did that, right? And then we sort of journeyed to a longer section in chapter 5, which dealt with our righteousness. What are we? How are we righteous in Christ? And then this morning we're going to begin with chapter 6. And this section of chapter 6 deals with our good works. More importantly, our motivation. Like, what is our motivation for doing things? And the next 3 Sundays, we're going to journey those three things. On how we give to the needy, to the poor, our prayer and fasting. And I've been sort of challenging myself, like how is Bill looking at himself when he gives, or when he prays, and when he fasts? And these three illustrations that Christ gives us, these three specific types of righteousness, and I'm assuming that we all have done this, but Jesus is teaching us that the Pharisees completed all these three things. They did it, but they wanted fanfare, and they wanted notice. They wanted people to notice what they're doing. And in the whole sort of the Jewish culture, like these three things they're doing, giving to the needy, prayer, and fasting, they were central expression of their obedience to God. And while these acts could glorify God, some of these Pharisees did them only to bring honor to themselves. So when we pray, when we give to the poor, and we fast, like, who gets the honor? And I think all of us who've been Christ's followers and journeying to be Christ-like, we are reminded, Jesus reminds us and even demands us that if we are truly his followers, there's nothing less than perfection. But Jesus knows our human heart, knows our sinful nature, knows how we miss the mark, and our tendency for self-deception. And then he issues a very strong warning. And this is sort of a verse one I've been sort of meditating through this whole week. And Jesus says, beware of practicing your righteousness before other people, in order to be seen by them. For then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Beware of practicing your righteousness. Beware of how you conduct yourselves. Beware of when you so-called do Christian behavior, Christian actions. So, in a sense, that verse can be summarized into these couple points. In layman's terms, God engages you directly, and you are to engage directly. God knows what you are doing. God is the judge. Humans are not the judge. So do your acts of righteousness before God, not before others. And do these acts to be approved by God and not by humans. And I've been sort of asking myself this whole week of what am I doing? Like, am I following these points or the essence, the thesis of Matthew 6:1? What am I doing? So this morning, we're going to study the first illustration that Jesus talks about. It's like giving to the poor. And again, we're going to deal with prayer and fasting in the upcoming Sundays. But let's just jump into giving to the poor. So Scriptures has always held the importance of giving to the needy. Blessed is the one who considers the poor. In the day of trouble, the Lord delivers him. Whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will repay him in his deed. So the Jews in biblical times, giving the needy was the most sacred of all the religious duties. They were called. They felt, I need to do this. And it's interesting that in the original language, the Jews used the same word in Hebrew for both righteousness and giving to the needy. They were the same word in the original text. Because to them, giving to the needy and to be righteous was the same thing. That's the same thing you did. And to give was to gain merit in the sight of God, and was even to win atonement and forgiveness for past sins. So it was then natural that those who desired to be good should concentrate on giving. And Jesus expected his followers, all of us, to do likewise, following God's law. So if you notice, if we look at verse 2, Jesus doesn't say if. He says when. When. It's not like, oh, maybe I'll do it. No, when you do it, this is what you do. Thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. So, what's this verse telling us? What's this verse telling us? We need to have different motives when we're giving. We don't want to end up like hypocrites. A very different motive. And sometimes we need to learn how not to do something in order to understand how to do something. And Jesus says that the people who act this way, whether in the street or in the synagogue, whether in the churches or towards charities, whether as a company, public relations gimmick, or a personal effort at self-promotion, all of these activities are the activities of hypocrites. Now, if we look at the concept of hypocrisy, there are several kinds of hypocrisy. On one end, there's one hypocrisy where someone pretends to be good, but actually is evil. And probably you have met these kind of people in your lives. And that's what the Pharisees did when they were testing Jesus. Ask him questions, try to find a snare, find a got you moment. So these type of hypocrites are known to be deceptive. They have an agenda. They want the harm. But on the other hand, there's another kind of hypocrisy. And these hypocrites are puffed up in his or her own importance and self-righteousness. And again, you probably have met some of in your lives before. And the characteristics of these hypocrites is they're blind to their own faults. But they're generally unaware that they're being hypocrites. They don't know that they're being hypocrites. They don't see it. They don't see the faults that they have, right? For example, when we judge others' sins and we fail to acknowledge the sins that we have, we are acting like that kind of hypocrites. But in verse 2, the hypocrisy is a little bit more subtle than either of those two I gave you. Here, the hypocrisy is the individual is convinced that their actions are in the best interest of the needy. They think that I am doing good. I am doing very good. And they don't know that they're acting like a hypocrite. They don't know. They're unaware. They say, I'm helping people. Like, so what? I'm good. But another problem with this, when we're helping and we're acting as hypocrites, is the recipients, the people that we help, the needy ones. They're not going to complain. In fact, they're going to be grateful. They're going to say, oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And that sort of contributes to their self-delusion. You see, that's the danger. The people we help feeds our self-delusion. Because only the most discerning will speak. They say, is this the right motive? Why are you helping me? Because they want to appreciate. They say, you're doing good. I really appreciate what you're doing. But if we sort of boil down, if we burn down to the essence of hypocrisy, if you look at the original word for hypocrites in the Greek, it is basically an actor. So in classic Greek, the original language, the word we get hypocrites meant an actor. And we see this in Greek tragedies where they wear different masks. It was used by sort of the actors on stage to put on various masks to play different roles. So, hypocritical righteousness is not from the heart. It's not from the heart. It is not genuine. In fact, it's acting or play acting for righteousness. I know most of you will never break into Hollywood. And if you have broken into Hollywood, I don't want to put you down, okay? But unless I'm assuming that you don't want to break into Hollywood. Or maybe you want to be an actor. Well, if I really don't want to rain on your parade, but if you want to be an actor, all the power to you, okay? But sadly, some of us are actors. We're playing a role. We're playing a role of a Christian. And I sort of touched on this last Sunday in my message. You know what the most dangerous thing is? I could be play a role of a pastor. I could sit up here, I could give you the best sermons, I could give you the best prayers, I could edify you, but I could be playing a role. We could be playing a role of a cheerful Christian, my brothers and sisters in Christ. And this kind of giving is not from love, it is from egotism. Fill my ego. We have to understand that true giving is focused on the recipient. And it's done out of love, care, and compassion. But unfortunately, hypocritical giving is focused on ourselves and done out of heart for self-gratitude and recognition. And individuals who do this, they get what they're after, but that's all that they get. The whole thing turns out to be a successful public relations stunt, but nothing more. That's it. There's no true act of righteousness and no reward from God. And Jesus says that they have traded the reward of God for the reward of other people's praises. So what is the right way? What is the right way or the right motive to give? In secret. Jesus tells us, but when you give to needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees you in secret will reward you. So the phrase, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. What is Jesus teaching us? Jesus is teaching us that motives for giving to God and to others must be pure. Must be pure. And I think a lot of us don't want to feel that we are a means to achieve a goal. I don't know about you, but I just hope that the relationship that we have, and hopefully the relationship that I share with you, the times I share with you, when we have coffee, we have chats, I hope that you don't think that I'm doing it because it's, quote, my job. It's out of love, my brothers and sisters in Christ, specific grace. Because, on a side note, and some of you may agree or disagree, I really think that we would appreciate that the relationship that we have together is solely for pure motives. And not that our relationship is not because I treat someone as an instrument to serve a goal or a transaction. When I first started being a teacher, I did a lot of volunteer work in the International Students Department at Douglas College. And this was way back in the 90s when I first started in the ESL. And at that time, I found a lot of people, specifically guys. They would volunteer to help to be international students language partners program. I think a lot of schools still have this. So where you match up with someone and you practice speaking English, conversation English. And I sort of touched on this on my message last Sunday about witnessing. I found a lot of people in that Christian group doing that. And I thought, hey, great, all these people are out there, helping out. But their motives were not to help. They were treating it as a dating service, able to meet girls. And that type of witnessing really broke my heart. I was like, on Fridays, we sing, we share, we do Bible study. And that sort of event really touched me. In a sense, it really challenged me. Like, what am I doing? Like, when I build relationships, is it out of pure motive? Am I doing it because I want to get to know the person? Or is it there's some way I can benefit from that person? So how can our left hand not know what our right hand is doing? What is Jesus talking about? Well, the phrase is hyperbole. It's an extreme example to emphasize the total lack of attracting attention. Jesus is saying that when we give, we should not only hide it from others, we should not focus on ourselves. First, Jesus says, don't give to the applause or the praise of others. Now, Jesus says, don't even give out of motivation for self-satisfaction. There should be no patting on our backs, saying, oh, we did a great job with our left hand and while we give with our right hand. But when we give in secret, God sees what we do in secret, and God will reward us. There is no secret with God. We know that. God's all-knowing, all-present, and He will see our good deeds even if no one does. Think about that. You know what? Even I feel it. When I don't feel appreciative, it hurts. And I'll be honest. We all feel that. But that's my sinful nature, and I need to tell myself, no, Bill. You do it because you love the person, and you do it because you love God. You don't do it for praises. And that should be the real motivation in giving, to please God and God alone. Now, sometimes some of us are bothered by this whole idea of heavenly rewards. And we ask ourselves, shouldn't we be motivated to give even with no promise of reward? Why? Why does God promise us heavenly rewards as part of our motivation? Why? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, heavenly rewards shows God's justice. God is a just God, and therefore He punishes evil and rewards good. That is the part of God's nature of being just. And then secondly, every time we choose God's reward instead of other people's reward, what are we doing? We're acting in faith. We are choosing the unseen reward by faith rather than the visible reward of the here and now. Faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do that other people don't see, and also what God calls us to do, to live a life of faith. The writer of Hebrews 11 says this. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. And Jesus' words is not saying that we are not allowed to keep records. We all have filed income taxes. Well, tomorrow's the last day, so hopefully you did. Because the reality is it's impossible to keep a secret of the amount of charitable giving you give, right? That's why we have income tax receipts or giving receipts. Because we are required by the government to keep it very accurate of our donations. And the larger the faith, the more people we have to keep a record of. But Jesus is condemning the practices of impressing others. And Jesus' followers, we as Jesus' followers should give generously out of compassion when there's a need. And God's rewards when we give that way. Now, interestingly, the word for reward is different in verse 2 than the reward we use in verse 4. The hypocrites receive praises from humans alone, and that is their only reward. And those who give in secret, however, will receive a reward from the Father, a reward of greater value because it will be perfect and eternal. So earlier I asked you, have you filed your income tax yet? And have you thought of donating your refund to the church? What if I tell you today that whoever gives the most this Sunday gets their own personal parking spot? I don't know if that's tempting. Getting your own parking spot. I had that at Carlos's school. You can buy your own parking spot. But you know what, interestingly, I never saw the person park in that spot. And now each time I drive by in the parking lot and I see that spot with the person's name because that person donated, it reminds me of what I'm doing. When I give, do I need to know that Bill gave this much amount? Or Bill did this? You know, it's easier. It's easier to do what is right when we gain recognition and praise. But the reward motive has no place in a Christ follower's life. This is a hard truth. God doesn't promise a material reward. But we want a material reward. We want to be blessed by materials. Doing something only for ourselves is not loving sacrifice. I've been reminded this whole week about this. You know, doing something only for ourselves is not loving sacrifice. Matthew 5:16. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Why do we do what we do? What is our motivation? What is our motivation? If God calls us to give our time, our talents, our treasures, whether it's publicly or privately, then do it. But check the motives behind your next good deed. And when you do it, ask yourself, do I stand before others or do I stand before God? To develop a before God alone approach, we must become more introspective and meditate and ask, why am I doing this? And who is watching me? We also need to talk about our pleasures. What is it about this religious deed, this charity I'm doing, brings me pleasure? There's a very important caution we must use in talking about the rewards because it can suggest to some that we earn our way into heaven. And we know that psychologists are teaching or say that this appeal forms a healthy ego and a strong self-image. But there's a danger. Jesus warns us of the danger of seeking approval of others because, you know what? It is extremely intoxicating. And it has deceiving powers. That is why I talked about each week I read to myself how to be a humble leader. That's stuck next to my office, stuck next to the wall near my computer. I need to read it and remind myself, am I being a humble leader? Especially when my compass gets out of alignment and I need to realign myself at least once a week. What Jesus aims is that the self-deceit that weaves itself into the fabric of our personality, in which there is not only a notice me approach, but also the inability to know that the problem is present. So this sense of hypocrisy ought to warn us. Therefore, we need to surround ourselves with close friends. And you know what? One of the most valuable sort of assets I have are close friends who are willing to tell me the truth, not willing to make me feel good. Well, there are times I need when I need my spirit raised up, but I really appreciate the close friends who speak into my life. And I pray that you have those friends too, are not willing to just give you the good news, but also the bad news of how you are falling short. Those are the friends that you need to hold on and never let go. Because those are the ones who remind you of your motivations, of your actions. Jesus is infallible, and we are not. Jesus wants honesty and self-awareness of our faults and our selfish desires. So again, how do we know whether our giving is like the Pharisees? And what are the signs that we need to back off and go more private in our giving? Again, it comes to praise. It comes down to the praises that we get. Now, if we get praise, then we have already received your reward in full. Take your receipt and go. But when we do our good works in secret, then our Father who's seen what we've done in secret will reward us. So if you have been struggling with doing things because you want to get reward, you want someone to pat your back and says, well done, well done. I challenge you to tear up those earthly receipts and live like a Christ follower. This week, let us live by faith for the better and lasting rewards that only God can give. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, it's great that when people praise us, it feels good that we're loved, that we're important. But God, I just pray that whatever we do, whatever our motives is, it's always pleasing to you, that you are the motive, and you are challenging us to love, not that we get something in return, but sacrificial love. And Lord, if any of us here are challenged that we are an addict to people's praises, Lord, I just pray that you can help us to break that cycle and to give because you want us to give and you want us to love. We ask in your Son's most holy name, amen.